So today I'll be talking about Inkscape. I want to go over how to set up your file and how to prepare your drawing for either laser cutting or vinyl cutting. Now, after opening up the program, first thing we're going to do is set up the document properties. You're going to go into File and then Document Properties. In this window, first thing we're going to do is change the default units. You start out with pixels, and I like to change that to millimeters, or if you prefer centimeters, also fine. And then the custom size down here is the size of your page. By default it will start with A4, but I have this little example piece. Let's say this can be maybe a necklace or a bracelet or a keychain. Something small like this, about 5 by 5 centimeters, is a nice workspace for a beginner's project. So in millimeters, let's change that to 50 by 50. And you can see as soon as I change the numbers here, the page on the background immediately changes. Then before we close the window, I also want to have a look at the markers down here. If I will turn it off, it means I'm not going to be able to see where my page is. So I like to keep it on, and I also prefer to keep this one actually on. So whenever I draw something over the edge of my page, I'll still be able to see my page. So now we're ready, and close this up and get a little bit closer to the page. I actually have a mouse with a scroll wheel here, and if I press down on the scroll wheel, I can move the page more to where I can see it. And if I want to zoom in, get the page a bit bigger on my screen, I can select the magnifying glass and left click to zoom in. Now if you want to zoom out, if you see up here, we have some options that belong to the magnifying glass. If I click on the minus, it will zoom out again. Now in this page, it is just 5 by 5 centimeters. And again, feeling inspired by the little example piece I have here, I just need to know how to draw some basic shapes. If you look at the toolbar on the left here, I have a square, a circle and a star. And those are your default drawing shapes. So let's go ahead and select the square. And then on the page, left click and drag to draw a shape. Now, Inkscape actually remembers the settings of the last person that worked with this program. In my case, I apparently worked with drawing red squares, but it could basically be anything. If you draw something and you basically see nothing happening, let's go ahead and select a color first. So I can see my square is still selected, and down here I have a whole bunch of colors. If you drag on the bar, you can pick like a lot more. And if I click on the color, my square should change into that color. So you can just pick whatever you like. And if you can see, if I draw a second square, it remembers that setting and I get a square in the same color. Like this. Also note that at the top here, the options from the magnifying glass disappeared and changed into these numbers. So per tool, you have a different set of options. These options here will help you define your objects further. So looking at the square settings, I have a W and an H to set the size of my object. So if I change it, I will see my orange square changing. And then the other two are for creating a square with rounded corners. So if I would change this into a number, I get a square with rounded corners. So if I'm gonna draw up a new shape, it will still remember that setting. The same goes for the circle tool. If I draw a circle, you can see I'm not gonna get a nice circle, but it remembers the settings from the last time. Look up here. it actually shows you in a little icon whatever kind of shape you want to work with. And if you change the numbers, you end up with a nice circle or with the Pac-Man kind of figurine. And yeah, and the same goes actually for the star tool. Mostly I recommend draw up some stuff and try what settings does. It is quicker than me trying to explain and talk through all of it. Now with all of these shapes, each tool is just meant for one specific thing. So if you have a star selected, you can only keep on drawing stars. You cannot move them. So to move stuff, you go to the move tool, which is this black mouse here at the top. And that black mouse will allow you to select an object to work with. And you can also note that you have these black arrows, and the arrows will help you to reset a size. So to either stretch and also to move. So as soon as you move near an object, you can see like the little icon hopping next to my mouse. Whenever I see that icon, it means I can pick up stuff and move them about. And also again, note the top bar here. The options have changed into icons that all refer to moving and changing objects. So let me just get one clear shape. So you have these ones for like rotating stuff. You have the numbers for changing position. So if you just want to move a little bit, again, you have the size of your object. So you can change the size wider and higher. And then looking at these icons here, if you see the shapes I've been drawing, some shapes are in front and some shapes are behind. Now if I want to have my little Pac-Man hiding behind the blocks, I click on this icon here and it will hop behind it. If I use one of the middle ones, it will just go like one little bit to the front, and the other one will automatically place your object all the way in front. If you want to delete objects, you can always use right click and select delete, but you can also work with the keyboard and just hit the delete key and your objects will also go away. Now the final thing is for rotating stuff. You can of course rotate like in steps of 90 degrees, but maybe you just want to rotate it a little bit. Now if you click on an object once like this, you get the stretchy arrows, but if you click on it again, the stretchy arrows will change into a rotating one, and you can pick it up and just rotate it like a little bit. Which will bring me down to the final two icons here, which are for mirroring. So if you want to have Pac-Man looking the other way, you can click it and it will go into that direction. Now you can see I've been drawing some shapes, and it is okay with this program to draw outside of the page. But when we are ready to laser cut it, I actually wanted to end up with something that is 5 by 5 centimeters. And now my drawing is a little bit bigger. Now, one way to do it is, of course, selecting the blue block, making it a bit smaller and making it fit inside the page. The other thing you can do is if you click and drag, you can make a large selection and pick up multiple objects at the same time. Do note that if you're selecting multiple things, it only picks up stuff that is totally inside my selection box. So if I would let it go like this, it only picks up the blue one because that was the one that was inside my box. So if I want to pick up two things, it will now ignore my red block and my purple block. And in this way I can make stuff smaller, make it fit in here. Now also with rescaling stuff, if you want to keep it in proportion, hold down the control on your keyboard and then if you move your mouse, it stays nicely in the shape you have designed it in. One of the other ways of doing this, if you look up here, you have this tiny lock. If you click on the lock and then drag on the arrows, it does the same in a controlled way, keeping stuff in proportion. So let's say my artwork is ready now and I want to continue to cut this out on the laser cutter or to make a sticker out of this. Then my next step is going to be to go into Objects and open up the Fill and Stroke menu. This menu is meant for controlling your colors. Fill means the inside color of your object, and then stroke means the line color of your object, and in stroke style you can set how thick that line will be. You can see at the moment that it is gray because the program has no idea which object we want to change. So to get this to work, you pick up your black mouse and click on an object, and now you can see my yellow Pac-Man. I have defined the yellow color for it. And the same goes for my red block, the blue block, and the purple block. My next step is I want to make sure that this file is ready to be cut out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select mouse and I'm going to select all of my objects, and I want to turn off all the colors. So I'm going to go to Fill and click on the X to turn it off. Now if I later on decided to turn the colors back on, I can click Cube, but the program does not remember the colors they were before. So because it doesn't know, it turns them black. So to turn it off or to turn it on like this. Same goes for the stroke, so the line thickness. If I turn it off, it goes away. The objects are not deleted, they are still there. But if I turn it on again, it doesn't remember the red line, and it by default sets it back to black. Now, one important thing to realize when you see this drawing, a machine will not look at the colors, it will look at the lines. So Pac-Man is overlapped by 3 squares, and when you would cut this out with a machine, it will literally follow all the lines. So my Pac-Man is gonna fall apart into multiple pieces. Now, one way of preventing that is, of course, picking shapes, pulling them out of the way, or even deleting them to make sure nothing interacts with my Pac-Man. The other way is, if you say, I really like this design, is to join all the shapes into one shape. So what you can do is say, I want that. I select everything I want to keep in one shape, and then go into Path and go to Union. That will join all the shapes into one outline, one silhouette. Downside is, in this case, is that I would lose the shape of Pac-Man. So I'm gonna go ahead and undo this. One of the other things you can do is to use difference instead of union. You can see there's a whole list, so I recommend trying all of them out. With difference, you can achieve it the other way around. So let's say I want to have Pac-Man eating up this cube. I'm gonna turn on the color so you can see a bit more clearly what happens. Pac-Man was yellow, like this. So Pac-Man is in front of the cube. I'm gonna go ahead and select both shapes, and then say, instead of union, I'm gonna say difference, and then the shape that is in front will be cut out of the shape that is behind it. So if I'm gonna undo this, pick up Pac-Man and put him behind the cube and repeat the difference, then it will work the other way around. The cube was in front of Pac-Man, so the cube gets cut out of the shape. I'm gonna be left with this little yellow sad blob. So This is a really nice list of controlling what is going to be cut out or not. And also don't forget under only with your black mouse, with these buttons you can control which shape is in front or behind it. Realize this story about joining of shapes also applies to working with text. Now, if you look at the toolbar, the big A down here is for adding text to your artwork. So if I'm going to click and type something, I'm going to start with a default letter. I can select it and make it bigger. And if I double click and select just like you would do in words, I can change the size and the letter as well. So if I can change this into something nice, let me see, something like a brush script, you have this text which has the same problem as we had before with Pac-Man. It overlaps. It's a bit hard to see like this. So again, use your fill and stroke menu. If you accidentally already closed it, it was under Object, Fill and Stroke. Make sure you have your text selected. Go to Fill, like this, and then click on the X. So we turn the color of the letter off, and then go to Stroke and click on the box. So we turn the letter on outlines. So again, you can see same problem. The letters need to be joined. So if you would cut it out like this, you will damage your text. So to fix that, we select the text and click on Union, and that will fix your problem. Now we get to the final part of the story. Let's finish this art piece. I'm gonna put them together and make sure we save the file correctly. So small recap, we select everything we want to keep. We make sure that the artwork is inside the page. Open up the fill and stroke menu, which was under Object, Fill and Stroke, and then go to Fill, turn off all the colors, go to Stroke, make sure we click on the box, so in case not everything was on stroke already. And I want to switch this to 255 and enter. So we have everything in red lines. It is not strictly necessary, but it's a good way to recognize that we're creating cutting lines for our PDF. Then final step is go into stroke style, switch it to millimeters, and type in 0.02, enter. It's a bit hard to see on my screen, but if I will zoom in, you can see we made really thin red lines, which is necessary for the machine. So I'm gonna go ahead and zoom out, and we need to save this. So File, Save As, and I think it's always a good habit to save on the desktop. So if you're not there, click on the arrow and select desktop and give your file a good name, something you can recognize it on, and go into this one and select PDF, so portable document format, and go ahead and click on save. The final window you see before you click OK, do check the settings. Like I said before, Inkscape does remember what you did previously, so that should be helpful. I like to keep top one on, so you're not going to have any problems with text when you switch to a different computer. Check that this number is here. It's just a good default to have, and select either one or the other. If you're gonna save as a page size, make sure that your artwork is entirely inside the page. I'm gonna show you what happens. If you click on OK, you should have a PDF which looks rather okay. If you're gonna have your artwork partly outside of the document, So I just move the text a little bit outside and I will save it like this. Like example 2, and save and OK. Then I'm gonna have a cut off text like this. So then if you're gonna use that setting, it is important that you check that the entire artwork is inside the page. The other way is working. I am gonna delete this bit so you can see a bit more clearly. When I have just a simple shape and I have a lot of space left in around my page, it's a good idea to save with the other setting. So I'm gonna again set this up as PDF, example 3, and save and switch this to object size. And with the object size, we also set up a margin in millimeter. I recommend the number 1, and then OK. And what it will do is it will ignore the page size and it will save just the object with a little bit of a margin, which is a good idea because machines usually do recognize the amount of white space you have around it. So less white space is a good thing to get less confused later on. So this is the wrap up of my tutorial, and I hope it helps. Thank you for watching.